Management Studies at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, with research interests spanning venture capital and private equity, corporate finance, and public-private participation. Please welcome Professor Thillai Rajan. Okay, he's just busy getting mic'd. We will also invite the others who we need to release this report. I'd like to call upon Mr. Naru Narayanan, please. Could I call upon Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan as well? If you would come up on stage, gentlemen. And Professor Nagarajan, Dean I&AR, IIT Madras, to join them. And last but certainly not the least, Mr. Rajiv Lochan, Managing Director and CEO of Kasturi & Sons. May I request Mr. Narayan, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, and Professor Nagarajan to please release the report and present the first copy to Mr. Rajiv Lochan. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. First, let me thank TiE for giving us the opportunity to come and release this report in this exceptional conference. And the TiECon, this is the 9th TiECon, and this is the 8th report. So for the last about 8-9 years, we've been kind of growing parallel. Both these events used to happen almost at the same time, October, November, or November, December, but in two different arenas. But the first time that we've been able to come together and do this jointly, and thank you so much for the TiECon team for giving us the opportunity. So I know that I'm standing between an exceptional panel discussion that's going to come after this, so I'm going to keep my presentation very short. I'm going to essentially talk about 5 key trends that we have seen in this year's report that's focused on startups. Okay. So the first thing that I would like to highlight is the big picture of the Indian startup is truly breathtaking. So what is breathtaking about it? If we kind of look at the numbers, that's what is truly breathtaking. Right? So the investment in the startups between 2005 to 2015 is estimated to be at least about 111,700 crores. Now, I mean, that's a number that I think it's truly phenomenal. If you really look at it year by year, quarter by quarter, it doesn't really kind of give you this sense of magnitude, but this is a very big number. Right? Now you can look at it relatively and then say, okay, how is it in country X or how is it in country Y? But in absolute terms, this is a fairly big number that we are talking about that has actually happened in startups. And when I say startups, I'm talking about the first 5 years of the company's life. So that means we all know as the companies become older and older, the investment flow also becomes higher and higher. Right? So the number that has gone into ventures and startups in India is going to be substantially higher. Second is not all of the deals get reported. I mean, probably about 50-60% of the deals get reported, and the remaining 40% we don't even know the information in terms of investment amounts and so on. So therefore, we're talking about a number, we're talking about investment that's substantially higher than what I have shown here. Let's also look at some of the other numbers in terms of the investment flow. Year-on-year growth rate of 42%. Number of startups that gets funded, year-on-year growth rate of 16%. And the angel investor segment in the last couple of years has substantially boomed. For example, the angel deals have grown by 124% and the angel investors have grown by 107%. I'm talking about year-on-year. I'm not talking about a decadal growth rate. So these are significantly large numbers, and justifiably this indicates a vibrancy that we see in the startup system today. So this histogram looks at the kind of venture investment that's happened in startups from 2005 onwards. And we looked at a moving window of 3 years. And what we find is, there is a consistently increasing growth, starting from 154 billion in 2005 to 2007. It's about 468 billion in 2013 to 2015. Consistently has been growing for the last so many years. So the second trend that we wanted to highlight is the pivotal role that the incubators and the accelerators are going to play in the startup ecosystem today. So our data shows that being a part of incubator and accelerator increase the probability of getting the subsequent angel funding by about 3 to 5 times. So that's again a significant impact that the incubation and acceleration system is having on the startup ecosystem today. And about half the incubators are located in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So that means these institutions are playing a very important role in evangelizing the idea of entrepreneurship, evangelizing the idea of startups to the smaller and the medium-sized towns. If you look at angel investors and venture capital firms, most of them are in the metro cities, tier 1 cities. And the incubators thus play a very important role in taking the spirit of entrepreneurship to some of the smaller towns. And more importantly, these institutions tend to support a larger number of startups. Right? An incubator on an average supports about 30 startups at any point in time, and the accelerators in our data set have supported about 100 startups at any point in time. So these are larger numbers. So yesterday and today, there's a lot of talking about how do we need to have larger number of startups coming out. And if we need to realize those numbers, I think we need to have a very active incubation and acceleration system in our country today. The third is the rise of angel investors. So in the last few years, substantially significant growth has happened in terms of the angel investors. Right? Between 2008 to 2015, we have about 3,800 angels deals that have happened. And the last 3 years, 2013 to 15, we have about more than 4,300 crores of angel investment that has actually. Again, let me kind of put a disclaimer. These are ones that are reported. I mean, there are so many deals and investments that do not get reported. And so the real investment amount could be substantially higher. The angel investment round itself has increased from about crore in 2008 to more than 4.5 crores in 2015. An average angel investment ticket size also improved from about 20 lakhs to more than 1.5 crore in 2015. Right? But more importantly, what I want to highlight here is the age of the startup at the time of angel investment had significantly reduced. Right? From about 4.77 years in 2008, it's now come to about half a year in 2015, about 90%. About a 90% dip in terms of how soon the company gets funded. Right? So we are talking about companies get funding sooner, the size of the investment is increasing, number of investors are also increasing, so that's a very, very good thing that's happening in the Indian startup ecosystem today. So if you look at the histogram, this indicates the angel deals that have happened on a 3-year moving window starting from 2008. So the consistent growth. Right? Look at the number of investors that have actually happening in the Indian ecosystem. Again, there is a consistent growth starting from 2008. The fourth trend that I want to highlight about is Indian entrepreneurs will have to kind of realize the fact that there is not enough capital going around, right? And the startups go hungry. If you look at the number of startups that are able to get some external funding, out of the total startups that are founded, only 8.3% are able to get some amount of external funding. Remaining, either they kind of survive on their own or they find it so difficult to get any amount of external capital. Some of the venture firms and the angel networks that we interviewed for this report indicated an applicant to success ratio of about 0.67 to 3%. So these are all very, very low numbers, very, very low success ratios that we are talking about, reflecting the fact that there's a lot of startup capital scarcity that we have today in this country. Globally, if you look at it, the ratio of founded companies and funded companies, it's fairly healthy, right? We looked at 3 particular sectors and looked at the ratio of the number of companies that's been funded to the number of companies that has actually been founded, and we find the ratio anywhere between 36 to 52%. But for the same sectors in India, we find the ratios between 5 and 11%. So there is really a significant scarcity of startup capital, making it more and more difficult for entrepreneurs to raise money. So this kind of gives you an illustration of what we are talking about. Right? We have about 875 startups. For every 875 startups that gets founded, we estimate that about 75 get some amount of funding. Right? It could be the first round angel funding, seed funding, or so on. Right? 875 to 75 is what happens at the first round. And out of the 75, 15 are able to get the second round of funding. And out of this 15, 5 go to the third round, and out of this 5, only 1 firm is able to go to the fourth or subsequently higher round of funding. Right? So for each firm that gets to the fourth or more round of funding, we have about 875 companies that are founded. So it's a very, very strong selection criteria that's happening here from the investors' side in terms of getting the companies funded. An important feature of this year's report that we have done is we've looked at the startup pipeline. Right? We just not look at only the winners. Right? So we try to compare companies that have been founded and try to compare them with companies that have been able to get some amount of external funding, and we believe the insights that we get can be very useful for entrepreneurs. So let me share you some of the insights that we had in this process. So the first is there is a very thin line that separates the winners and the participants, right? The companies that got funded and the companies that have not been founded. Right? In one of the angel network case studies that we did, we counted the number of positives and the number of negatives that the funded company had and compared it with those companies that have not been funded, and we surprisingly found the difference was just 2, right? So the very, very thin line that separates the winners and the participants. So that means, the promoters who have not been successful in getting funded just have to up their ante a little bit to be able to move from just being company to a funded company. Second, the incubators and accelerators play a very important role in compressing the time taken for the startup to go up the maturity cycle. Right? We looked at the maturity index of companies that's been a part of incubation and acceleration system, and we found this index value was about 14% higher for companies, the part of the incubation and acceleration system. So they are playing a very important role, and this is helping to increase the probability of getting the next round of funding by about 3 to 5 times. So that's a very important role. And the third, referral plays a very important role. Right? 90% of the angel investments that have happened is mainly through referrals. Right? So that means you need to be able to reach out to the investor, not just through an internet or a cold calling, but through a network which is trustworthy by the investor. Right? That referral is very important. And the top 5 parameters that the investors look at in terms of making an assessment of investment proposals is as follows. The first is the business model. Then we have the customer traction, the value proposition, market size, and margins and profitability. Right? If an entrepreneur, you're trying to finalize your business plans and go to a roadshow with the investor, I think it's very important that these are the 5 factors that you should play some importance to. Right? So I said 5 things that I'm going to say. So this is the 5th thing. But before I finish, I wanted to talk about one more thing. Right? So the theme of this year's TiECon is Tamil Nadu first. But looking at the data that we have and the kind of findings that we've been able to find out, what we find is this is going to be more like an aspirational statement, does not reflect the status quo. Why do I say that? Right? So I've kind of put together a small chart that compares the investment from 2000 to 2015 across different cities. Right? So it may be a little smaller, but what you have, Chennai is the green dots, the third column. So literally you find in 2002 there is virtually no difference between Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi. But fast forward about 10 to 12 years, we find a substantial difference in terms of the number of startups that are getting funded between Bangalore and Chennai or between Bangalore and Mumbai. Right? Another chart, this shows the number of companies that are founded from 2002 to 2015 in different cities based on the year of incorporation. Again, you find there's no difference, virtually no difference between Chennai and all the other cities in 2002 to 2003. But again, fast forward about 12 years, we find a substantial jump in the number of companies that gets founded. Right? So as a Tamilian, I would like to kind of go by what the TiECon motto is in terms of making Tamil Nadu first. But then, looking at the track record, I think we need to really look at what are the fundamental changes that needs to be done to make Tamil Nadu become first. Right? So it's time for us to reflect and time for us to see whether we can correct the contours that we are seeing correct now and then push the state to a upward trajectory. So with this, thank you so much, and thanks once again to TiE for giving the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Can't imagine life without it. You don't just go online, you are online. You're connected. Your online world brings you closer to your real world, moving you faster forward. So you expect an experience that is as dynamic as you are. It's personalized, multidimensional, instant, delivered to you on any device, anywhere. Your connected experience gives you a better view of the game than a front row seat. It lets you shop online while you're in line. It frees you to collaborate and gives you rapid access to the information you need to get the job done. It lets you live and work on your terms. Because you're not one of many. You're the only audience that counts. To stay competitive, businesses need to tailor your experience to be as unique as you are. That means chasing away complexity to focus on wowing you. It means maximizing multi-channel experiences, reducing risk. It means growing revenue. These companies don't have time for technology that stands in their way. Do you?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our final session of the day. But though it seems like the end of 2 long days, we have an electrifying, high-profile panel discussing the topic, Startups, the Emerging Paradigms. Please put your hands together for our panel for the day, a panel that really needs no introduction, but indulge me as I would like to say a few words about each of our panelists. Our first panelist is the co-founder of Infosys Technologies and the chairman of Axelor Ventures. Recognized as a global business and technology thought leader, he was voted the top CEO IT services category in Institutional Investor's inaugural ranking of Asia's top executives. He served as one of the co-chairs of the World Economic Forum in Davos in January 2014 and was also awarded the Padma Bhushan in 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan. Our next member of this panel is a professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Madras and has served as the department chair. He leads the Telecommunications and Computer Networks Group at IIT Madras, a group that has incubated several technology companies. He is a director on the board of State Bank of India as well as a board member for several telecom and IT companies in India. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Ashok Jhunjhunwala. The next member of this panel is the Managing Director and CEO of ICICI Securities. In his 17-year career with ICICI Bank, he has held various key positions in the bank in the field of retail banking, corporate banking, and treasury. He has been honored with the Asian Banker Promising Young Banker Award and was recognized as one of India's hottest young executives by Business Today. Please welcome. Okay, we shall welcome him very shortly because he had a delayed flight. He should be joining us in just a few moments. I might as well tell you his name, Mr. Anup Bagchi. He will join us very shortly. The next member of the panel is the Executive Director at IDG Ventures India Advisors. IDG Ventures' key investments include, amongst others, Flipkart, Myntra, exited from there, Zomator and Unifor. He has been in the industry since 2000 and in the venture investment advisory since 2007. He is a charter member of TIE. Please welcome Mr. Ranjit Menon. Now we need someone to moderate this panel. And our moderator for today is the Managing Director and CEO of Kasturi & Sons Limited, most popularly known as the Hindu Group of Publications in India. He heads all non-editorial operations and is the first non-family member on the board in the company's 137-year history. He also devotes time to the social sector in the areas of public health and financial inclusion. He is an alumnus partner of McKinsey's India practice and one of the firm's founding partners of its Chennai practice. At McKinsey, he served over 30 institutions, including 25 banks and financial institutions in India, Southeast Asia, and the US. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rajiv Lochan. Hopefully that empty chair will be filled by Mr. Bagchi very soon. With that, I hand the floor over to our moderator who will take us through. I'm looking forward to a very, very interesting 45 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. The bar has been set very high for this panel discussion. It's the grand finale of what sounds like 2 days of intense discussions and enlightenment. But I am very pleased that there's a very eminent panel here with me. And I do hope that we will bring TiECon to a grand close as has been promised by the moderators here. The topic that we're going to discuss today is startups, the emerging paradigms. And obviously there's a lot of change, growth, dramatic growth, as Professor Thilairajan just shared with us. Incredible investments that have happened, over ₹1 trillion over the last 10 years, significant number of incubators, accelerators that have catalyzed growth, entrepreneurial energy getting unleashed. Yet there are some uncertainties that we're facing, slower macroeconomic conditions, valuations getting harder, access to funding seems to be getting more challenged. And Tamil Nadu in particular and Chennai specifically seem to be lagging behind. So there's obviously a lot to celebrate, but also a lot to introspect and reflect on. And so I think the worthy panel here will, I'm sure, enlighten us with their perspectives on a range of topics. Before we get in specifically to questions that I have, I thought it would be useful to just hear your top-of-mind thoughts for maybe a couple of minutes. And perhaps, Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan, if I could start with you. In some ways, you're the founder of the startup that most of us look up to and draw inspiration from. And in many ways, your Infosys continues to operate like a startup. So perhaps you've seen time, couple of decades of change, multiple cycles. Maybe you could kick us off with your views.
Yeah, first of all, to see the hall still full is very heartening, because I was really worried. Now, this is the last session, and I thought we were going to have an empty hall. But thank you all very much for staying around. I'm going to start by saying something, to Tillai's wonderful report. I feel that we have arrived when it comes to startups, especially when you look at the metros like Bangalore, NCR, etc. Because there, I think we have seen an explosion of startups. It's sort of maturing, etc. So we have two sides to the coin. One side, when you look at places like Bangalore, I feel that we have a mature ecosystem. Of course, we need now success stories, which is about now getting to the next orbit of creating world-class companies out of India. Second, on the other side is, definitely the aspiration of Tamil Nadu, aspiration of Chennai to create that vibrant ecosystem. And I'm positive, I'm optimistic that it can be done with ecosystems like the IIT Madras Research Park. Second, I think if you want to go to the next orbit, I strongly feel that we need a lot more linkages between our research institutions and the startup ecosystem. Again, I'm going to show, and I'm going to look at IIT Madras as an example of that. 100+ startups out of IIT Madras. I think we need to replicate that, we need to grow that, we need to sustain that. The third point I want to make is, if you want a vibrant startup ecosystem, you need, of course, the angels, but you need also mentors. If you look at a startup today, they will say that as they start getting funded, they think of moving to Bangalore or moving to NCR. Yeah. Now, how do you prevent that? You prevent that by saying that, that vibrant ecosystem of mentoring and recruiting the second employee, the third employee, the fourth employee can happen in Chennai. The recruitment angle has to be addressed also. Many a time the startup moves to, let's say, Bangalore because they can get good talent. So both of these will have to be addressed. The mentoring can be addressed. I'm confident that Tamil Nadu probably is the best position because historically Tamil Nadu has been a state of entrepreneurs. It's seen some of the best companies in the south. And so there is a reason to believe that some of them, especially the newer generation, younger generation, will step forward, play a bigger role in making sure that the startup ecosystem is supported and becomes vibrant, not just investment but also mentoring. On the talent side, I don't know why we are not seeing the benefit of the ecosystem that exists here. The number of IT companies and number of IT employees in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai especially, is only second to Bangalore or NCR region. So there should be enough talent, but maybe they are not today looking at startups. They're looking at probably mature companies. I think we need to kind of incentivize and encourage them to take risk and move to startups. Maybe that ecosystem is better in Bangalore. So that needs to be explored further, and maybe we need to think about it. So those are the points I would make at this point.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Gopalakrishnan. Professor Jhunjhunwala, you're arguably one of the most prolific catalysts of entrepreneurship and innovation in the country and have been celebrated by multiple institutions. Your thoughts on these emerging paradigms for startups?
I think Thilay's report did quite a bit. There is one point I do see not emphasized in this report, and I'm not sure whether got emphasized at all in TiECon. Very often missed out, that within the startup situation, there are startups which are specifically focused on manufacturing and hardcore technology. That number is gradually rising in India, can have a more transformative role to the nation as we go forward. And it is gradually rising. I won't sort of say that that has arrived yet, but it's fairly close to arriving. This is an important aspect, and I think what Chris mentioned, this tie-up between research institution and the startups, a significant part of it is in terms of those startups which are technology startups, hardcore technology, manufacturing. That is something that we need to watch. There is a kind of belief, at least a few years back it was very strong, even now, oh, these things will not succeed in India. And I think the angel funding or agencies, the venture capital, all of those who think in that direction are wrong. And it will soon be proven. So those who are betting early would get their benefit. For example, there has been large number of startups out of the 110 startups that IIT Madras has started formally, and probably 15, 20. There has been a number of startups that we have been associated with. One of the startups that I have been associated personally from the day one is Tejas. And Tejas Network is today a company which has grown, continuously grown, and became today 70 to 80% of the fiber network in the country is driven by equipment from that company. And it is a profitable company. It is going for IPO next year. This kind of thing, you will, early next year, it will go for IPO. You will see many more. I'm fairly confident that companies like Aether, that came from our startup at IIT Madras, company like Signi, company like Swatha, companies like Unifor, are the companies which combine technology and have the ability to go all the way to IPO and get into success. And this is not 10 years down the line. You'll see that in 3 years, 5 years. And this is something I hope that TiECon next year focuses a bit on these kind of startups. I also want to point out that many of these startups are more likely to probably have roots in Tamil Nadu. Since Tamil Nadu has been mentioned, not that I am particularly talking only about Tamil Nadu, this could be anywhere, but because Tamil Nadu has been traditionally a manufacturing state. So I strongly feel that this is something that is a changing paradigm, something that needs to be watched, something that needs to be really talked about and very often not talked about. The second thing that I want to point out, very often the youngsters today come and talk to us, and they often debate whether they should get a job, they should go for some management, go for higher studies, management studies, higher studies, or should they do a startup? I think gradually the belief is shifting that if you do not have immediate financial obligations, if you don't have to support your parents or some other, the best career option is startup. The best career option in the country is a startup for bright youngsters. I think this is something gradually getting inside the youngsters. The bright ones, the ones which are the brightest, need to get that. Because at this age, at 22, 23, if you get into startup, you can afford to fail, you can afford to make mistakes. And I think the next 3, 5, 7 years, the amount of learning that you are going to have is you will not get it anywhere else in any other career. And I think this is somehow getting emphasized, getting into the head, and I think we need to focus more on that and get, I would like to see the number of startups going up by 10 times, 20 times, 50 times. I think we have 2 million engineering graduates, and I'm not trying to say that only engineering graduates should drive the startup. I'll say the design people, people from commerce background should all get into startups. But I'll also say if 2 million engineering graduates are there every year, can we really have at least 5% of them getting into startups? 100,000 people getting into startups? Maybe at least have 20,000 startups per year? I think this is what the country needs, these kind of numbers that the country needs, and this is what is likely to happen in 3 to 5 years if you decide to start working on it today. Thank you.
Very energizing call to action, Professor. But Ranjit, with that setup, let me now pull you in, because Professor Tillarajan's numbers are somewhat sobering. If I got the math right, roughly 1 in 100 to 3 in 100 startups actually get funded. Forget becoming successful, just getting funding. And that seems like somehow funding is a big hurdle to get to. And you've obviously, you know, Flipkart, Myntra, Unifor, there's a bunch of successful institutions that you've actually funded. How should entrepreneurs here that want to, you know, take that plunge, think about funding?
So, you know, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. IDG, we are a very early stage focused, technology focused venture fund, looking to invest in software, in healthcare technologies, and you know, digital consumer. Obviously, it's a, you know, very big area that we invest in. Some statistics here. I mean, we saw some really very large numbers there, right? Just to give an example of how this ecosystem has changed. I mean, we've started investing in India from 2007. And the deal flow at that point of time, I mean, we would see, I mean, we would be extremely happy if you would see, you know, 100, 150 companies in maybe in a quarter or more, right? Today, we see over 200 companies that hit our system, right, in a month. Now, I'm not saying that we cover the whole market here, right? I mean, so we cover maybe 50, 60% of the market. So you just, I mean, there's been an explosion of startups, which is, I think, fantastic. The other thing is also, if you compare to what the kind of companies, the entrepreneurs that, you know, I used to meet in 2007, 2008, and the folks that we meet now, the amount of awareness that they have, the amount of, the clarity of thought that they have in their own systems is extremely high. And the average age, Professor, you were saying, I mean, today, the kind of companies that we meet, the entrepreneurs, the average age has come down to about 26 to 28. Now, you know, it's fantastic in one sense, also scary in the sense that these guys are absolutely fearless, right? I mean, failure of, you know, I mean, the sense of failure is no more seen as a, you know, as something that is not good, right? So a lot of things is tremendously kind of evolved over the last 10 years that we've been around looking at these companies. Now, on your particular question and on these kind of companies and what they should do in terms of investments, right? Like I said, we've got 200 companies that hit our system every month, and maybe in a year we do 6, 7 investments. Now, what we also have to understand is, again, I mean, this is nothing to do with the quality. At the end of the day, funding a company, it does not, I mean, a company that's got funded and does not get funded, I mean, in the sense that there are multiple factors that go into why companies get funded, but definitely it doesn't mean that the ones that get funded are not good. Okay, I mean, let's be very clear about that, right? I mean, we've got to be very clear. Although, you know, the popular media has just taken this to a different level altogether, right? You kind of glorified funding to an extreme. But I think for us, what we look for, and I mean, this is pretty much very standard for what all VCs kind of look for, is large markets, very good team. Now, that's a very subjective element there, right? We really want to back a team that we believe can tide over systems, because building a company is not a short-term exercise, really. I mean, and the other thing is, most people today that we kind of meet kind of look at quick flips, right, which we think is not the right way of beginning to start a company. You got to really think long term. And sustainable technology, and we are a technology investor, so we look for very, very strong sustainable technologies. And we've backed in the last 10 years some innovative stuff, something in manufacturing. For example, when Professor was mentioning manufacturing, we've invested in 2 medical devices which manufacture products for the global markets, meeting global standards. India has no history of building quality medical systems. We've taken the bet, on 2 companies, one based in Chennai here, called Perfint, which is building an interventional oncology device. Extremely committed bunch of folks from GE. So we are seeing that, making investments beyond internet and digital consumer companies is something that will continue to take off. And more the trend is towards deep kind of technologies, which not just at the surface application level, but a little bit more below. And which is why we are looking to partner with academic institutions. For example, IIT Research Park, we funded one company out of them called Uniphore, which is speech recognition. We're working with IIT Mumbai and so on and so forth. So even in that direction, I think there has been a lot of change. One last thing I would like to say, we discussed the Chennai ecosystem here. It's very, very important to have examples, and I think there's one company that comes to my mind at least, Freshdesk. It's interesting that I think it was started in Coimbatore, which is not a Tier 1 city, and interestingly, he made a choice to shift to Chennai and not to Bangalore, right? And so, I think we are seeing those examples, which I think will go a long way to kind of, spur people to start more and be here, and then not just shift to Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi or wherever.
Thanks, Ranjit. Anup, in many ways, you and I represent legacy organizations that are being attacked by all these entrepreneurs here, and our business models are getting disrupted. What is your take on startups and the changes in the paradigm world of startups?
No, I think there are 2 or 3 ways of looking at startups. If you look at all the sigma of all the valuations that are happening, including all the unicorns in the world, I think it's roughly around $500 billion. Sigma of all valuations, although the capital invested would be much lower. That is less than Apple's market cap, just to put it in perspective. Okay, that is one. But if you look at the impact, so tomorrow if Apple disappears from the face of this earth, actually nothing will happen except for a few fans here and there. Nothing will happen, people will shift to other phones. But just imagine if everything goes away. Uber goes away, and all the unicorns go away, and Airbnb goes away, and consequently Amazon goes away, and hence, Flipkart may not have gotten there, and Ola would not have started. So I think it is from a societal perspective, we should also look at it like a cost of an R&D on the society. Okay, because it is really a fraction of market cap of globally. That is number one, with very, very disproportionately high impact. That is number one. Number two, from a legacy perspective, see, business models have been built. And if you look at the business models that have got built, it is delivering X value to the consumer by expending Y amount of OPEX. Now, over a period of time, one should reset the OPEX and the value that is getting delivered, because the ecosystem also moves. So one doesn't reset the OPEX. Why? Also, one doesn't think of various different ways of adding value to the consumer. Now, here comes somebody who thinks that this OPEX can be taken away, and yet either the value can be delivered or a value can be delivered in a different way. And that is where the attack starts. And everybody becomes, nimble. And legacy organizations also, they start to think about what is to be done. in my mind, if you see, who all have got disrupted, people who have got disrupted and completely out of them have not moved. So I remember, many years back, 10 years back, when I say many, every year looks like a decade these days, these years. But, when I look a decade back, I remember, in a room with Nokia senior management. And Apple had just come out with the iPhone, and Nokia senior management kept insisting that, this is just a variant of a product. This touch phone is a variant of a product. And look at what happened to Nokia and all of it. So I think, as we move forward, two or three things are happening. One is, I think, instead of competing, I think there is an era of collaboration that is happening. So if you look at, companies like Cisco, they have been able to basically weather those storms by investing, acquiring, assimilating, and so on and so forth. I think there is an era of collaboration that is coming, and not eyes shut and getting yourself attacked. That is number one. Number two, I think from a talent perspective, I think there is an issue. Because if you look at talent, good quality, smart, intelligent, high energy talent will not flow into legacy organizations which doesn't give them that kind of a work culture. Because at the end of it, there are three kinds of capital that one is investing to harness opportunity. So there is a financial capital, which nowadays is easier because there are many people who are there with financial capital. Then there is human capital. And then in some businesses, there are infrastructure capital. Okay, and if you see the mobility of the capital, financial capital is the most mobile. You can move that capital. Human capital also is mobile, but it's not so mobile. But if you look at infrastructure capital of the legacy organizations, they are the least mobile. And if you see that the infrastructure doesn't now add up to getting or generating revenues or adding that kind of value to the consumers, because consumers are taking that value from maybe other channels, maybe other situations. Now the key is human capital, because human capital actually, is not just ideas, it is financial capital, but if you don't have human capital, you can't work on the financial capital. If you look at human capital, I think that is where the biggest challenge is. If you don't provide that work culture, human capital will not come into it. So from an investment banking side, for example, today 70% of attrition in the first 5 years is happening not to another investment bank, but it is happening to startups. So they go, do a startup or they join a startup because they think that they can fail. And I think societally, as the professor was rightly saying, societally, I don't think there is any shame in failing at all these days. Plus, fortunately, their parents have worked hard and they have got enough cushion. Even if they fail, it doesn't matter. And third, I think ecosystem is developing, which is really a confluence of 2-3 things. And I would urge that the first kind of vector must, strengthen. That is, we must have stronger, places like IIT Madras have been pioneering. But I don't think we have enough places like this, which really generates knowledge. Okay, plus you must have people who are willing to study there and then willing to spend their careers in those places. Because if they move out, I am from IIT Kanpur. The problem with IIT Kanpur is that it's not a smart place, but people don't want to stay in Kanpur. Okay, so if you don't want to spend in Kanpur, then your attachment, etc. is lower. Third, you must have people who have enough net worth and wisdom and experience and judgment to be able to create a mentoring ecosystem around that. So if you have all these three, then startups start. So talent is important because talent will get attracted, both wisdom talent as well as enthusiasm talent, they get attracted to this kind of ecosystem. Which is why, you have ecosystems in Chennai, you have ecosystems in Bangalore, and you have ecosystem in Gurgaon. Actually, there is no ecosystem that has got developed anywhere else. And every government is running programs on ecosystems and startups. I don't think it will happen. So from a legacy system, I think it is collaborating. It is going and resetting every time. What value is getting added and what kind of cost is irrelevant cost. Okay, and how do you, create a system which is tightly aligned but loosely coupled. The problem with legacy systems are that they are tightly aligned and tightly coupled. The issue is a bit like amoeba, that you have form but no shape. It's difficult to do if you want to run a large organization. So we will see how it runs. To have the soul of a small organization, nimble organization, amoeba kind structure, but without having failing. So in financial services, you know, a sector that I belong to, in financial services, you know, you can't risk too many things. So which is why you'll see that financial services hasn't got disrupted that much. Because regulators are very, very worried. Because tomorrow if a large fraud happens in financial services, you know, regulators will get caught. Yeah. So a smaller guy cannot disrupt too many things in financial services, because where do you gain trust? How do you give underwriting to a loan? You know, how do you do underwriting to the trust? How do you make sure that the money that is given is really coming back? So financial services hasn't got disrupted that much. What has got disrupted are DVP systems, which is delivery versus payment. So you have trading systems which have got disrupted. Even settlement systems haven't got disrupted actually. It hasn't. And there the big has only become bigger. So actually custodians, large custodians, etc., they have only become big, has become bigger. Banks, big banks have only become bigger. Actually they haven't become smaller. But you know, there is attack. Because one doesn't have a solution on how to attack this and make it nimble, yet add value, yet not fail.
Understand. Very, very instructive perspective. But let me, you set it up well for me to go back to Professor Jhunjhunwala and Mr. Gopalakrishnan and string it back to Tamil Nadu first, which is frankly why all of you have gathered here, right? Anup mentioned three ecosystems, right? Chennai, Bangalore, and Gurgaon. Yet Professor Thilairajan's statistics over the last 10 or 15 years of how these ecosystems have mushroomed leaves Chennai far behind the other two. And there is obviously institutions like IIT Madras, which are the bedrock of both talent as well as research and faculty members. To Mr. Gopalakrishnan's point, Tamil Nadu has been very entrepreneurial in its roots going back several decades, if not centuries. There's obviously very good talent that's available. And given that financial capital is quite mobile, it doesn't seem like that's a constraint. So what needs to happen? I don't want to look back and lament on why Chennai or Tamil Nadu hasn't moved, but in your view, what are the 2 or 3 things that need to happen from either institutions that are here or entrepreneurs that are here or policymakers that are here that will actually accelerate us forward? Mr. Gopalakrishnan lobbed it to...
Frankly speaking, as long as the ecosystem in India develops, it really doesn't worry us too much where it is developing. So that's my own attitude. I think IIT Madras happens to be now with the research park and the incubation, it leads. Many of our startups, after a few years, migrate to Bangalore or to Hyderabad or some other place, and we don't discourage them. That's fine. If you ask me why do they really not stay here, I hear lots of different things. And one of the things that somebody tells me that it's not a cool place.
No, so what do we need to do to make it cool? It is not a cool
place for youngsters. In fact, one woman walked in and told me that it's not a place where I can go and have a beer and not be frowned upon. I think these are certain cultural issues. I thought that we had moved very far off. I mean, I've been here now for 35 years, and I thought that we have progressed quite a bit. There must be these kind of lacunas. I think the key thing that people point out that talent is more easily available in Bangalore. Though Bangalore is not becoming easy today to either live or work. I mean, in fact, the people who have gone from here often sort of say it's more difficult because particularly if you live, Bangalore itself has become 3 or 4 cities. That's right. Transport is bad. But I think these problems exist in almost every city, and one can take every one of them and go pluses and minuses. As far as I am concerned, I think IIT Madras has taken a lead, particularly on manufacturing startups, and it will continue to probably remain in lead for some time. I hope others do come up faster, and I think here the lead has quite a bit come from the institute. The fact that the institute and the research park has taken up. I myself, by the way, I'm from IIT Kanpur, and I even try to sort of see what can be done with Kanpur. can't. So the point that I'm making is that to some extent, yes, I mean, one need to do more here, but to some other extent, if any other place it flourishes, it's fine. I think part of the problem is that I'll also point out that the angel funding, venture funding, everybody still does not look at manufacturing organizations and technology organizations as possible candidates to disrupt. I think that probably is the key difference, and probably Chennai will come up faster. On the other hand, I will also point out that, for example, we are trying to make electrical batteries for the electrical cars, and we see that the way the components are available more easily in Bangalore, some of the other things are available today, has gone far higher than that in Chennai. That was not so 20 years back, but things have not progressed well, and today you can find more easily the subsystems player, people who can do the small subsystem development and feed into you. Those things are now better placed in Bangalore, and many of us, in fact, often use that in Bangalore. So I think that's fine. That's all that I can say.
I want to give a different perspective, but somebody like Thelai probably has to now do a detailed analysis of this. See, Bangalore had waves of entrepreneurship. In the late 70s, 80s, it's the IT boom with Infosys, Wipro, etc. Late 90s, the Mindtrees, again, So you need successful entrepreneurs, successful companies that inspire people to start. The people who, leave, the senior people who leave these organizations actually start new companies, and that, I think, is unique to Bangalore to some extent in the NCR region, because there was the BPO boom was in Delhi at that point. So again, people left some of these companies and started new companies there. So that seems to be missing in Chennai. So if you take manufacturing, for example, I think we need to make sure that, maybe in medical devices, healthcare, or automotive, when it comes to maybe autonomous cars or drones and things like that, this becomes a hub for startups, and maybe, the TVSs of the world say that, okay, we have been successful, now we'll support a slew of new ventures which will go into, the whole manufacturing of automotive industry in Tamil Nadu. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect is the cosmopolitan culture does matter. It's very, very important. If you look at both Bangalore and NCR region, I'm told that 80% of the people are outsiders. They're not born in that location. And hence what happens is, when you come to that city, you don't feel like you're an outsider, because everybody is an outsider. So you very quickly form your own community and roots and things like that. The culture is more cosmopolitan. That's something, again, probably needs to be looked at and addressed. The third point is about mentoring. I'll reinforce that, actually. I think we need to see a lot more mentors coming forward. You will find that if you're in Bangalore or in Delhi, there's a lot more of those people in those locations.
I will just like to add one more thing. I think the local government needs to do more. One is often scared of talking about it, but that itself is a problem.
So, I'll just give you an example. I mean, when we set up our office in India, we had an office in Bangalore, we had an office in Bombay, okay? And for about 3-4 years, we were in Bombay. Nothing, no startups in Bombay. I mean, really, only financial institutions. I mean, all the banks are there, investment banking community is there, And then we shifted. When we look at our deal flow, it was very, very clear that Bangalore was getting us a lot of deals. The other one was coming from Delhi. We kind of 3 years down the line, we shifted our office from Bombay to Delhi, and then Ola happened in Bombay. Okay. Now, I'm not joking. I mean, if you look at the charts, you will see that one company has transformed that Powai area into, inspiring folks to set up companies. And plenty of them have failed. I mean, today you go to Powai, you will find far more failed companies than, successfully running ones. But everybody, in the last 2 years, the number of companies that have come up from that one region is phenomenally high. And I think it was driven by the fact that Ola came. And Ola, by the way, has shifted the tech team to Bangalore. But in spite of the fact that, Bombay is expensive, tech talent is limited there. In spite of all that, you still have a bunch of companies that continue to come out of there the last 2 years, right? And I really think it is because of certain examples. And I think from the data that we see, at least at our fund, we are seeing that we today are receiving about 11%, 12% of our deal flow from Chennai. Which is why I'm saying I think it's important to have those examples and for right or wrong reasons, right? I mean, current startup ecosystem is looking to funded companies as the guys who've reached somewhere at least. I mean, for right or wrong reasons. I'm not getting into that. But I really believe that, companies like Freshdesk, Uniphore, which have started from here, rooted from here, been here and building stuff from here, will set those examples. And that Zoho, Zoho, he's a different level. He's never raised money at all. And I think he's a fantastic example, by the way. He's a fantastic example of how, you don't need to go to VCs to build companies, right? So I think these examples will set the ball rolling. And we are seeing, at least in our deal flow, that the percentage of companies that we see are increasing every year that come from this place.
Wonderful. So at least I'm taking away a 5-point agenda for Tamil Nadu first, right? I think it starts with embracing our strengths, which is deep tech, research, manufacturing. And so, go back to your roots. Second, I think getting some talent-related social infrastructure right will help. Third, getting the mentorship network in place that will sort of nurture and groom the entrepreneurs will be a big requirement. Fourth, obviously, policy from a local government standpoint is critical. And lastly, perhaps most critically, and where I presume Tycon can play a big role, is to celebrate successes here in a very visible way so that the budding entrepreneurs there actually draw inspiration and can move forward in a meaningful way. Very helpful. Thank you for setting the agenda for Tamil Nadu first. Hopefully someone's taking notes and will action it. I wish we had lots of time to talk, but we are fairly time crunched. So let me open it up to the audience to see if there's any questions that we can take for the panelists from you. Is there a way to get some mics around to people? I see a couple of raised hands here.
Hello, sir, I am Dr. Bhaskaran, Deputy Director from Industries Department. I am Deputy to EDI, Entrepreneurship Development Institute. Sir, government, you said they want to take care, but government is giving a lot of subsidies, like for micro, small, medium. So we have put it everything in the internet, and one famous scheme called NEET scheme. In that, a lot of industries can be started. So it's entrepreneur has to come forward for that, because we have a lot of scheme. Government is giving more than 200 crores per year. And then, a lot of schemes we are having. So it is the duty of the entrepreneur should come, and we have tie up with TIE to give a best training. They are giving the best training like business canvas model.
Understand, sir.
So after that they have started industry, they have conducted their survey also. The persons who are attended the training also is very good.
Understand, sir.
Yeah. That,
Why don't we hear from Mr. Gopal?
No, there are a lot of schemes by the government, and just to make a pitch for EDI, first of all, how many people in this room know about EDI? Not bad.
Thank you.
No, the reason why I'm saying that is, for the past 15 years, if I'm not wrong, EDI has incubated more than 15 to 20,000 rural startups, which very few people know about. And especially in agriculture products, food products and things like that.
Thank you, sir.
But the government schemes, the challenge is the the hoops you have to go through to get those, approvals and things like that. The Government of India announced the startup policy. They said we will recognize startups and give them income tax breaks. I think out of 600 plus companies who applied, one qualified. That's not how startups are. Out of the 600 plus should be qualified. Why eliminate anyone? Right? Because you ask them to go through these hoops, they will not. Actually, they'll stop doing it because they don't have time to waste for that.
I think what do cities or states need to do more to encourage startups? I think they have to help create early market. They have to create early buzz. I think I haven't seen Tamil Nadu government doing enough to create some early, small market for startups. I'll give you one example. Today, for example, one of the major things that is happening, one sector, is this whole electric vehicles. Extremely important for the country. It is the future. It's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You'll only see electric vehicle in the country. Tamil Nadu is the capital of auto capital. Tamil Nadu is a state where electric vehicles get no special subsidy or no special preference over the petrol or diesel based vehicle. Other states have changed. Delhi and Bangalore were the two first. So if I buy the same, I for example made one electric vehicle, helped design an electric vehicle and bought one. I paid 2 lakhs rupees more here as compared to what I would have paid in Bangalore. I think we see a serious problem. I approached and talked to everybody in the government.
The wherewithal, but from the consumer standpoint, there's obviously still lots of grouses. So it does feel like there needs to be more platforms for engagement where the government can hear feedback from the consumers and also the government can share with the consumers what's available. So I don't know, maybe that's another action point under policy, which is much more dialogue and interface between entrepreneurs and the government is something to explore. The organizers are glaring at me. So let's take one last question perhaps, and then I'd like a minute with each of the panelists, if that's okay. Yeah? This gentleman up here, he has a mic.
Sorry. I got it first. Right. So my name is Keshav. I work for an angel investment company. So my day in, day out work is to work with entrepreneurs. So I want to make a case for why we need to help entrepreneurs to stay in their preferred cities, for example, Chennai or Kanpur. And I also want to make a case against big organizations. Why they should support entrepreneurs, because out of my own experience and the conversations I've had, I think it is not the talent, not the money, it's the permissions that come from the big corporations that help the startups to get the first lead. And these permissions are not coming from units in Chennai nor any developing cities.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but is there a question? If not, we can, I am running out of time, so the organizers are glaring at me really.
Right, so my question is, what big organizations are doing to address this issue?
So for example, in ICICI, we run a program where we invite students, and more than 500 institutes, students have participated, where they solve problems and then we fund them. So it is very successful. The third year is running, so we would have funded more than 150 such projects. And we will take them, or they can join us, or we'll fund them to take it up and expand. So there are programs that we are running as we speak.
I think other than funding, the biggest thing for startup is some early small market.
That's true. That's true.
I think that is another thing that is not emphasized. People, the startups need to see revenue, and the revenue, the early revenue, small revenue. We're not talking about large revenue. I think government and corporates of the state need to help.
One last statistic on that. Again, this is something that we work with startups on, trying to understand how their sales cycles work, especially B2B businesses, right? Recently, we were looking at one particular startup in the recruitment space, and their average conversion rate when they talk to a startup is 4 days, right? And to a very large organization could go up to 8 months, right? It just naturally the more startups around the system, their ability to generate more revenue from those startups, right? So probably that's another case for more startups, and then they can generate revenue between themselves. But I think that's a very, very valid point.
Excellent, thank you. Professor Thillai closed with 5 tips that he shared. I thought we should use the fact that we have these 4 eminent folks here captive. On behalf of the entrepreneurs out there, gentlemen, I'd like your top tip to the entrepreneurs, given the day and age that they are living and fighting in. Your top tip for them. Anup, I don't know if you want to lead us off.
Be focused on a narrow problem and solve it fully for a small customer segment to get that early win. Don't defocus.
I would kind of look at it from a venture funding perspective and say that, work on your, market and product fit before you approach any investor. Because it's given the markets and the amount of capital that's available, it is very possible that you would be able to raise money on a PPT, but then that is not the end game. And so really focus on product market fit and then reach out to investors and so on and so forth.
I will say do not get hyped with this whole large funding that keeps on happening and that you keep on hearing. As he points out, get some early breakthrough in the market. Even the small early breakthrough will help you learn, because otherwise you can sit in your offices or and continue to do things believing that you are doing something great. I think getting early revenue starts helping. Focus on that. Contain your expenditure in the beginning. As you start getting validated, then you will get funding. That's a time you really look at larger things and expenditure, rather than at a very early stage look at large expenditure, taking money from venture capital.
To the entrepreneurs here, what I want to say is that getting equity funding is not the goal or the objective of a startup. The goal or objective of a startup is to come out with a value proposition where you satisfy the need of a customer and the customer is willing to pay for it. If you focus on that and not focus on funding, I think you will find that you are at a better position to create a sustainable organization. You will look for profitability. Infosys never took funding, and we never, of course, could take funding because venture funding was not available. So please think about creating a organization that is profitable as soon as possible. The last resort should be equity funding, the last resort. Don't make that an objective for your company.
Very, very powerful advice. Really, I'm hearing razor sharp focus. Understand the consumer that you want to serve and ensure there's a product market fit. Don't fall for the hype and don't chase someone else's dreams. And really, pace yourself for the long haul. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Excellent advice. Gentlemen, I know you're all very busy and have many commitments. Thank you for taking the time to be here. On behalf of TiECon, I want to place our gratitude on record. And to the audience, thanks for listening to us and raising a couple of questions that were very interesting. I hope there's a chance for you all to interact over coffee outside.
Yeah, only other thing I would say that any Chennai-based startup needs help, contact IIT Madras Incubation Center. Will help.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for that most incisive, informative session. I'm sure everybody here would agree with me when I say that this session has been the icing on the cake that was TiECon 2016. Now, since we are in the last few minutes of TiECon Chennai 2016, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Lakshmi Narayan to provide us with some closing remarks on what the last couple of days have had to offer. Sir, the stage is yours.
Good evening. I'm not going to take too much time. Thank you very much for coming and attending this 2 days conference, one of the best TiECons that we have organized. 2 very eventful days. on the final session to cap it all based on the report that Thillai Rajan presented was very, very revealing. TiE has 61 chapters, something like 22 chapters in the US. I don't know if in a TiE Boston or TiE Chicago or a TiE Atlanta session that they conduct like this, they discuss about Silicon Valley and why Boston, Chicago, Atlanta are not like Silicon Valley, why people run to Silicon Valley all the time. I don't know, we seem to be obsessed about getting everything into a particular place, and we seem to compete with all the other chapters. I want to just, it was very interesting, it is good to have a goal to be like some other place, but I don't think we should be obsessed with it. But the reason why I'm saying it is, many of you may not have participated in the award ceremony yesterday. We had some fantastic examples. The first example that was pointed out as something that we should celebrate is our own Girish Mathrubootham and Freshdesk, which was voted the startup of the year 2016 in the whole of this country. And we had Dr. Namperumal and Arvind High Hospital voted or receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. And that's one institution that has given the world a new business model, a completely new business model that's been written about, that has been popularized by C.K. Prahalad, that's been a case study in most of the business schools all over the world, etc. And Dronacharya, he has created mentored hundreds of entrepreneurs, and his ambition is to create 10,000 entrepreneurs by the year 2025, sitting in a place like Madurai and focusing on rural or tier 2, tier 3 city-based talent. Those are the type of people that will make a difference to the startup community here. And we have fantastic opportunities to chase. Manish Kothari talked about the future, which is so revealing. You know, one message, if I want to take away from this conference is, any tech startup, if AI is not part of it, don't even start. That's the advice that he gave, because he's thinking far ahead. Those are the type of opportunities, and we had cases that we were able to listen to, like the ThyroCare case, Derby community, great success stories. No matter where they come from, they've accomplished something that's a role model for each one of us. If we have that spirit, that idea, that passion, all else will follow. That's the key takeaway. Thank you for participating in this conference in such large numbers and contributing to the entrepreneurial ecosystem in this part of the world. Wish you all the very best. Thank you.
TiECon Chennai 2016 was brought to you in partnership with the Hindu Business Line, supported by our event sponsor FSS and our partner country IDA Ireland. We would also like to thank our day sponsors Fulcrum Venture, Capital First, PayPal, R.R. Donnelley and Axis Bank. This year Pitch Fest was powered by Wealth Advisors and Awards Night brought to you by Cognizant, Axis Bank and Godrej Properties. Thank you also to our other sponsors, Prodap, Trill, Access Healthcare, Astio Software, CAMS, Uyala, TVS Logistics, DGS, Rage Communications, Angels Unleashed, Kotak Bank, Car Technology, Vatek Wabag, Shasun Strides, Akamai, Vedacor, Godrej Properties, Coven Care and Notion Press. We hope you have benefited from the last 2 days and leave us with new contacts, ideas and inspiration to last you through the year. On behalf of the Governing Council of TiE Chennai, the Organizing Committee of TiECon Chennai 2016 and the TiE Chennai Secretariat, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next year for TiECon Chennai 2017. Goodbye and God bless.
Playing your own game. This is your time to play the big game and lay your road to great fame. You're at the forefront of the all-new league. league. The field is all set, stands a full house. Are you game for it? If it's not you, who else? If it's not now, when then? Today is the day, oh, oh, to go along my way, Samina, mina, sangaleva, cause this is Taikon. Samina, mina, waka, waka, Samina, mina, sangaleva, it's time for you now. Yourself hard, give all you got, keep playing it your way. Markets are raising their expectations. Go on and feed them, this is your moment, no hesitation. You gotta save it all, and need a more. Before that, Kalam Kalti ATI, Kalam Elvani, Samina Mina Sangaleva. It's time for you